like to call to order the regular council meeting for Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Corporate officer, any late items? No late items. If I get approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Betts, Councillor Peak, all in favor? That carries. Consent agenda. Anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Betts.
Item B from the Four Seasons Cultural Society.
Okay. So that goes down to, where does that go anyway? Section 11. Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Patton?
If I may, item G, please.
G, and that's
Hager Lake.
Hager Lake. Okay. And anyone else? That's good. Okay, so we have approval of the consent agenda as amended. Councillor Betts, Councillor Peak, all in favor? That carries. And straight on to my report. This past Friday, February 7th, the Councillors Peak and Barkwell joined me at a visioning workshop organized by our Development Services Department to kick off the updating of our official community plan. About 25 local residents participated in the workshop, representing various community groups, council advisory committees, local schools, and churches. The group considered some of the trends and developments that have occurred in Summerland over the last 10 years and envisioned the challenges and opportunities for the next 20 years. The public engagement phase of the OCP update is now underway, with an open house scheduled for February 18th from 12 noon to 8 p.m. at the George Riga Arts and Cultural Center. Residents can also complete a community visioning survey available on the summerland.ca website, or paper copies are available at Municipal Hall. Councillor Barkwell and I attended the regular board meetings of the Regional District of the Okanagan-Similkameen on February 6th and January 23rd. Under the Local Government Act, regional districts must monitor and report out each year on the progress they're making on the objectives set out in the regional growth strategy. On February 6th, the board received the annual report showing the 2023 data for 16 performance indicators used to track progress in the RDWS growth strategy. The report showed, for example, that housing starts throughout the Okanagan were down by 7% in 2023 compared to 2022. And of those new builds, only 36% were single-family dwellings compared to a historic average of 67%. One of the goals in the regional growth strategy is to support an accessible multimodal transportation network, and the performance indicator for that is the number of bus passengers in the region. The rural Okanagan transit route saw a ridership increase by 5.2% during 2023. In Penticton, it increased by 17%, and Osoyoos had an expansion of its local service and saw a 38.4% increase. While here in Summerland, the Route 30 bus had a 45.6% increase in ridership. And last year in 2024, in fact, it had an additional 12.8% increase. Since the introduction of our free fare program, ridership on Route 30 has more than doubled since pre-pandemic levels. At the January 23rd RDWS meeting, the Okanagan-Similkameen Hospital District Board, which is the same as the RDWS board, authorized a contribution of 30% of Ontario Health's 2025 capital project costs, rather than the 40% that the Health Authority had requested. A letter will be written to the Ministry of Health asking for the government to make up any resulting shortfall. This year's requisition will total $8 million, about $1 million more than last year. That represents a 14.75% increase and will mean that the average residential property in the South Okanagan will pay an initial $14. So that's up to $138 a year, cut from $124 a year. That's for various hospital projects. On January 29th, Peachland Mayor Patrick Van Minsel and I met with 6 opposition MLAs to discuss challenges with the Highway 97 corridor and the need for a year-round secondary route between Summerland and Peachland. In attendance were Harman Bangu, the Shadow Minister of Transportation, Misty Van Popta, the Shadow Minister of Infrastructure, and 4 Okanagan MLAs, Amelia Boltby, Macklin McCall, Christina Lowen, and Tara Armstrong. Finally, on January 28th, Councillor Barkwell, Patton, and Peake joined me at the Summerland Legion for a ceremony hosted by Member of Parliament Dan Elbis to present the King Charles III Coronation Medal to 3 Summerland residents. John Dorn, Kathy Lauer, and Susan McIver were recognized for their outstanding contributions to the community and country. Each recipient has helped to develop nonprofit organizations that provide vital services to vulnerable members of society. That's my report, and I'll ask the CAO for his.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to start off with big thanks to our hardworking public works crews who dealt quickly with a water line break on the weekend in Garnet Valley, which affected a large number of Garnet Valley residents and also many residing at Hunters Hill as well. Within just a few hours, the leak was located and repaired, with services restored more quickly than anticipated. In addition to posting on Facebook, we also took advantage of our Voyant Alert notification system to provide a custom notification to those that were directly affected and who have signed up for Voyant Alert. And I am pleased to report that this involved notifying 339 residents who had actually signed up for the Voyant Alert service. In fact, more than 2,500 have signed up across the community, and that number grows every month. On the theme of water breaks, I'd like to thank Council for prioritizing asset management and infrastructure renewal. It used to be a routine event to respond to water breaks at Canyon View Road and Dale Meadows Road, but since the water main replacements in those locations, we have not had a single event of breakage. Not only does this avoid the public health risk of water contamination and, of course, the nuisance and inconvenience to residents affected by no water service, but also avoids the very significant costs. When a water break happens, it seems to always occur on the weekend or after hours, requiring the mobilization of people and equipment off shift, with the associated overtime expenses or expenses to call in special assistance from engineers or other firms. Investment in this infrastructure saves time and money and ensures that for years to come, our water systems will perform reliably for citizens. Speaking of infrastructure renewal, a couple of alternative approval processes are underway right now for the Wharton Street project and the Victoria Road project. While much of these projects are supported by savings and reserves, grants, and other funds, the portion that is borrowed requires public assent. The process, which is established under provincial legislation, requires that residents opposed to the borrowing need to submit an elector response form by Tuesday, February 25th. Those in support of the projects and the associated borrowing do not need to take any action. More details are available on our website, and we have also been doing regular Facebook posts. If the Wharton Street project proceeds, we would like to get it done by Remembrance Day to ensure the cenotaph is moved to its new prominent location in the center of the park. So we will be requesting proposals for pricing in the next week or so in parallel with the AAP process. However, the RFP will be clear to all bidders that no work on the project will proceed unless community support is provided. If public assent is not provided, we will not proceed with the project currently envisioned. Finally, just confirmation that spring is in the air already, as we are now beginning the recruitment process for summer students. Positions will support the maintenance of municipal streets, lanes, boulevards, cemeteries, sidewalks, drainage systems, as well as taking care of our green spaces, gardens, playing fields, parks, washroom facilities, garbage collection, and more. Just ran out of breath there. With that, I conclude my report.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councilor Barkwell.
Yeah, most of Garnet Valleys are new pipes. So is there was it in a new section and is there any explanation why we would have a break?
Thank you through the mayor. I'll direct that to our Director of Public Works who's joined us today.
Thank you through the mayor. Good question. It was a shear on an old water main along Washington Avenue that feeds into that direction. I'm guessing the shear was just from the frost in the ground in that area. It's right beside the creek and there's a lot of water movement there. So
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to our delegations. We have one this afternoon. The Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen. Come on up, gentlemen. If you want to both sit there or? Okay, you're good.
Thank you for having us. So I'm just going to run through a quick budget presentation. So this first page is an excerpt from our interdepartmental charter. This is the lens that we look at when we're dealing with finances. The RDOS is dedicated to providing the highest level of service to our clients. The RDOS is committed to maintaining our service quality at an affordable cost. The RDOS understands the importance of financial stability for our clients, and we pledge to keep our service costs affordable, ensuring that any increase will not materially affect the client's budget from year to year. The goal of the RDOS is to foster long-term relationships built on trust, transparency, and mutual respect. So I'll just go through a little bit of what regional districts are. So regional districts are corporations formed by the Lieutenant Governor in council by letters patent. The letters patent outlines the geographical area that comprises of municipalities and electoral areas. The power of the regional districts board is vested through a board of directors. Seats on the board are comprised of municipal and electoral areas. The RDOS board has 20 members, 9 of whom are electoral area and 11 who are appointed by municipalities. All directors bring their local perspective to the table. However, the overall regional's health is the most important view when they make decisions. Regional districts are not taxing authorities. The board of directors sets the budget, then requisitions the funds through taxation by the province. The province issues tax notices to the electoral areas directly and charges a 5.25% administration fee. Regional districts do not tax municipalities. Municipalities tax citizens on behalf of the regional district. What the regional district does is we manage and supply services that are legislated through the government, such as general government and 911 telecommunications. We also offer other services that are by choice and only created with the approval of those receiving the service. An example is recreation. Regional services. Regional services are services where the majority of electoral areas and municipalities contribute. Some of those services are general government, human resources, finance, corporate facilities, emergency planning, regional trails, regional transit. Then we supply rural services. These services are for electoral areas, and all properties in the electoral area would contribute. These are not charged to municipalities. Some examples are electoral area admin, electoral area planning, the Okanagan Regional Library, building inspection, and bylaw enforcement. We also supply shared services, and only those participants in the service pay for that shared service. Some of those examples are victim services, fire departments, and parks and recreation. Local services, those are services where only a defined group of properties pay for that service. Some examples are sewer and water services and fire protection. So the difference between municipalities and regional districts. Municipalities typically have 3 to 5 budgets, usually general, water, and sewer. Where regional districts, each service has to have its own budget as they need to be self-sustaining. The separate budgets ensure only those participating pay. So we have 162 services, which means we have 162 budgets. So the budget process starts in June, where managers look at the service under their purview and set baseline requirements. Any new initiatives come to the budget committee at a workshop in December. And those are in the form of full-time staffing requests, program change requests, and grant and aid. The budget committee then makes decisions and we apply them to the first reading, which happens in January, and then public engagement like we're doing today. The budget then must be adopted before March 31st. However, the directors can make changes up until that time. This slide here shows the overall picture of what the budgets look like the last 3 years. Currently this year, we have 51 million in operational expenses and another 51 million in capital. However, 13.5 million is of the capital are project carry forwards. So the overall tax requisition for the regional district is just over $27 million at first reading. The tax requisition has increased $1.6 million for an average increase of 6.37%. When non-market value is applied, the increase is 4.88%. Included in that 2025 operational budget are transfers to reserves of just over $4 million, which is 7.88% of the operational budget. This slide here shows the overall what each municipality and electoral area pay of that $27 million. Summerland is the second one down, which is 1.1 million, which is an increase of $84,000 and a net percentage of 6.12%. This slide here is a visual of the $27 million and how it is split up between electoral areas and municipalities. This slide here is showing what that contribution would look like if it was split out per capita. On the budget, each service has a line called administration charges, and what those are support costs. So support costs are comprised of the service costs exclusive of wages for the following departments: human resources, legislative service, finance, corporate services, and information services. The board has a policy where those charges are split out between capital and operating. 12% go to capital projects and 88% goes to the operational services. No support costs are charged to debt servicing, project carry forwards, or transfers to reserve. This slide is a visual representation of what the support departments cost. So the total support costs are 2.1 million. 1.87 million are charged to operations and 256,000 to capital. Now we get into the meat. So what's new for the 2025 budget? There's regional grant and aids, full-time equivalents, program change requests, and capital requests. So there were 7 applications for a total of $101,000 of regional grant and aid were asked for. The board has authorized 4 requests for funding of $16,000. There were 12 full-time equivalent asks for a total of $861,000. The board approved 8 of those at a cost of $535,000. It's important to note that not all wages are paid through taxation. Some are through user fees. Then there were some program change requests. There were 7 of them from director or staff driven. Not all change requests affect each area. For example, program change request 1 was recreation restructure, and that affects area E, which is Narmada, area F, which is West Bench, and area I, which is Caledon and Apex. The second one was emergency management. That affects area H, which is out by Princeton. Invasive tree program, which affects area F, which is West Bench. Then there was a parks and trail maintenance. That affects everyone, as some of that is part of the regional trail sections. Then there was turf management, which is area E, Narmada. There was a website redesign, which affects everyone, as that's general government. And then there was a BC Tree Fruits History Conservation. That also affects all, but was paid through reserve that had been dormant for a while. The website redesign is also paid through reserves. New capital requests. Capital projects are funded through reserves, grants, donations, and borrowing. Only when a capital is funded by borrowing does it result in debt servicing and increased operational costs. So this is a list of capital requests that affect all. These are all been funded through reserve, so there's no direct tax implication to the residents in Summerland. The corporate facilities 101 Martin edition, that is a placeholder as the board has not made a decision on what direction to go just yet. Emergency planning, we received grant funding for flood mitigation trailers. This 1-ton truck was required in order to tow those trailers. Regional trails was all grant and reserve funded. There's some Similkameen Trail construction, which is in area B and G, which is Costin and Headley area, Karameas area. The Adra Tunnel reopening is operational costs for a big project that was done above Narmada on the KVR to reopen a tunnel. And this here is a slide of Summerland's portion of each of the budgets that they're a part of. So Summerall's overall tax requisition was $1.1 million, which is an increase of $84,000 from last year. The tax increase is 7.89%. However, after non-market growth is 6.12%. The main factors of the increase were general government, regional trails, and regional transit. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Open up to council for questions. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Just one question. In the times that we're sitting now, especially around this table, we've had to look at how we could do reductions as far as our tax rates go and our costs that we pass on to our citizens. How is the RDOS doing the same for our citizens of Summerland? Based on what I see here, we've had very few reductions, but just all increases.
Yeah, I'll leave that to the CAO 1 second.
So a reduction would require a reduction in service level. In one of the slides, you notice that there was a reduction in recreation for 3 areas. The directors came to us and said, we no longer want this service level. It resulted in $173,000 savings. To be honest, it's only at pause right now because they want to determine what the effect is on the citizens. But the reduction in service starts at the director's level, and then it winds down to staff.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Thanks for the explanation.
I would add too, I mean, if you look at what we participate in, so mosquito control, for example, Summerland can't just decide on its own. We want to reduce. It has to be everybody who participates in that service has to agree. So that's where it gets challenging at the RDOS. Whereas here, it's just a vote. Only 4 people need to agree to reduce a service. Here in the RDOS, it's basically everybody participating in that service has to agree. So if CEO.
So if I like to add, so I'd just like to add to that, those 3 directors that reduced the service level for recreation, each one controlled specifics, Darramata, West Bench, and Cleedon. They could make the recommendation, yet all 20 had to vote on it, but each one made their own decision. For you participate in about 12, 13 services, but those same services, all 6 municipalities participate in. So that would be, all the group would have to recommend it, and then all 20 have to vote on it.
Councillor Trainer?
You may have touched on this, but can you remind me one more time, the regional trails? So our portion's going up, about 20,000. What are the big projects the RDOS is doing again?
Thank you. So the biggest single reason regional trails are increasing is there was a huge donation to the regional district to upgrade and open up the Adria Tunnel. And what should have happened is, when the donation is great and it was 100% funded by donations, but there's a consequence to that. The consequence is the operational cost. So going forward, anytime that there's a material donation, I've asked staff to take a report to the board with accepting the donation officially and then looking at the consequences. So the biggest single increase for what you're seeing is the Adria Tunnel.
I'll just have a couple of questions myself. So I believe the RDOS has a policy for grant and aids that that if an organization requests a grant and aid, a regional grant and aid from the RDOS, then they shouldn't be requesting one from a municipality to avoid that kind of double dipping.
That's correct.
And then, so are they made aware of that, when they apply for an RDOS grant?
I believe it's in the form.
Yeah.
Yes, it's in the form, and yes, they are made aware. And the reason is because each of them, 15 participants, pay a portion. So anytime the board authorizes a grant, a regional grant and aid, you are paying a portion of it. And then if you actually, they come here to you and ask for more grant and aid, you're paying 100% of it.
Anybody else? Thanks for coming out. This great that you come here every year. I think we really appreciate it on the board. We for our own budget, we have a public open house where we present the budget to the public. Now, I'm just wondering if maybe we could talk about this for next year, for the future. It'd be great if you maybe could participate in that and give this presentation so that more people are able to see it, because it'd be nice for our residents to maybe better understand the role of the RDOS.
That's a great idea. We have been going with that. If we're invited, we'd love to come. For instance, Saturday, we were having a open house for 2 electoral areas, which I won't mention because only one showed up. There was 5 staff members and 1 person. But tomorrow evening, we're actually doing our own public open house at the boardroom office. And it's also going to be virtual.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Councillor Parkwell.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering about the 911 emergency call system. It says improvements only. The 911 system's been in the news a lot lately for different regional districts on the island wanting to drop out of the program and stuff. And are there, and certain unfairnesses felt by some areas? What's the situation with us?
So we're still in it. There are some that are dropping out, you're right. And we're looking at what the consequences of that means right now. So we haven't really determined what that means for us right now, but we're continuing to recommend that we're status quo.
Okay. Don't see anything else. Yeah.
Just the deputy just reminded me just to say that the taxes for those are on improvements only. And there is a huge amount of, we're borrowing just under $900,000 to upgrade the antennas to increase the protective services.
Sorry, just to clarify that. So if you had bare land, you wouldn't be taxed for the 911. Or if you had a house, you are, because that's who's using the service. So that's why it's only taxed on improvements only, not land and improvements like most other services.
Interesting. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you coming out. I'm moved now to a public comment opportunity for business items. Anybody like to make a comment? Just come on up to the podium. And which item would you like to speak to, sir?
Just a question, to council, what do you know about the union contract?
Okay, so we're only commenting on the business items on the
Well, no,
agenda.
this is business.
Which item?
Project, because I hear rumor that there's the trip to Summerland truck in Oliver. An individual takes his truck home to Kelowna every day. There's a call-out process.
There is a call-out process, which is 2-hour minimal call-out. 1 hour is to pick up the vehicle to go inspect the job site by the supervisor. And in the contract, there's a statement that's, I worked for municipal government 31 years in the Lower Mainland. I was QP member. Knowledge and skill outweigh seniority. When all things are equal, seniority rules. So you have a crew that work on the waterworks or utilities, whatever. They all know the job. They all have the skills and knowledge to do the job. But you're sending a truck to West Kelowna or to Oliver. We're paying as taxpayers for the use of a vehicle for personal use. Not 80% of the time when I see a municipal truck in this community, it's mobile. It's not stopped working. Look at the pile of leaves on the doorstep of the library. Look at Memorial Park. Why aren't the leaves cleaned up? You didn't have any money to open the washrooms on Remembrance Day. Why? It's part of the budget. It's a community event. 2 hours to open and close washrooms on Memorial Day, and you don't have the money in the budget, but you allow people to use the trucks for personal use on and off the job. You send 2 guys to buy air fresheners in Lordco. They're in there for half an hour buying air fresheners for their truck. I know the wages roughly because I worked for municipal government. I retired 5 years ago. Starting wage was $33 an hour. All call-outs are double time. Extension of shift is time and a half. I know what the costs are to doing business in this community. I read an article, something about the RCMP, that there's no money to hire another officer. Why? When you're wasting money by having staff driving around, an employee, you can have a truck driver and tell them to go rake leaves in Memorial Park, but you still have to pay them the wage. Just because there's no work in truck driving doesn't mean there's no work for the employee. So you're showing that you have a very weak leadership team. There's 3 properties in this neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Usually I can go around and I can find somebody on the Happy Valley Road on working time, just up the road here by the packing house, over by Kingdom Hall.
Thank you, sir. Time is up.
My time is up, but I hope that you can address this
Thank
issue.
you. Thank you for your comment. Thank you. Anyone else, please? Okay, so we'll move on to our business items, our CMP quarterly report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Is the slide able to be put up? Would have been the don't have the quarterly report. Okay. No worries. I believe it was found out or sent out by via email to the councilors. Does everybody have a, okay. Again, this is the stats for calls for service, violent crime, and property crime, which are the majority of crime stats that are pertinent to Summerland. We again saw a reduction in the majority of violent crime for a 4th quarter in a row. However, we did see a slight increase in basic assaults and basic common violence, although you will see that it is listed as common with weapon or cause bodily harm or whatnot. We saw an increase from 14 calls last quarter to calls of 17 this quarter. In that, we did have an irregularly busy Halloween, which calls very out of character for Summerland. We did have a number of calls on Halloween that involved a bit of a party down at the beach, which we generated, I believe, 3 or 4 extra calls, which pretty much takes up that increase there. Concerning with respect to property crime, but very much accounted for, is we saw a 100% increase in break-in enters to businesses overnight, break-in enters from 4 to 8. However, this promptly ended on November 28th when my team and I located a residence in which a number of traveling criminals had set up shop in Summerland. We identified those individuals. We seized a number of stolen identities, another stolen vehicle, a large amount of stolen property that has been returned to owners, including tools and power tools. And the investigation continues. It's a multi-jurisdictional investigation that runs from Kelowna to the Lower Mainland. Again, we see a 50% increase in break-in enters residents when we went from 2 to 3. So the stat is somewhat skewed. In that, though, is included vacant residences. So if a vacant residence is broken into and we have someone squatting in there, that is captured in that stat as well. Again, we look at our top 10 calls for service, traffic incidents. Traffic incidents tend to dominate. I believe for the last 3 quarters that I've reported on, that has been the top number 1, as well as check well-being, minor thefts, again, mischiefs, and assisting outside agencies and whatnot. We can go down the list from there. Again, there were 2 groups that we identified. One with respect to bicycle thefts that had been bicycle and petty thefts that had been running all the way from West Kelowna down to a Soyuz, and that person's been apprehended and is in custody. The other ones were with respect to the traveling roadshow there.
Okay, thank you very much, Careful. Any questions? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation. We were talking about cyclist safety earlier today, and I was hoping to ask a couple questions, if you have these numbers, about just about how Summerland stands up in terms of bicycle versus automobile incidents. And if you have numbers either from the past year or even over the trends over the past 5 years, that'd be really helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Betts, and through the mayor. Since 2020, I know that we've only had 3 motor vehicle accidents involving cyclists. We've had 11, I believe, 10 or 11 involving pedestrians, as well as our pedestrians or somebody on the side of the road, whether or not that they were hit by debris or hit by an actual vehicle. But again, that's over the last 5 years. That doesn't take into account the highway, because BC Highway Patrol patrols the highways and collects their stats there. However, I wouldn't think that there'd be too many cyclists involved unless it was something to do with during basically triathlon season.
Thank you.
Councillor Sparkle.
So along those lines, are any of those incidents the e-bikes, which are proliferating and flying down the roads at great speed, and or scooters and such that people use now, the 4-wheeled ones and such as, because we had quite a discussion earlier about bike lanes and traffic safety and everything, and just wondered how big the issue was.
As far as our stats go, it didn't differentiate. They don't differentiate between an e-bike and a pedal bicycle, unless I were to go into the body of the report to be able to find that. However, to my knowledge, having been the operations NCO here for the last 3 years, I can only think of one incident involving a scooter, and that wasn't involved in the roadway. That was an accident in the skate park. Yeah, and other than that, I personally, speaking from my experience, haven't seen too much of an issue in Summerland properly. I know after working almost a decade in Penticton, there can definitely be an issue there. However, I don't see the same problem here.
Yeah, Councillor Trainer.
Yeah, I just have 2 questions. The first one, can you just remind me, you talked about a house with traveling criminals where you recovered a bunch of stolen items. What happens to those people? Are they arrested or do they move on, or what happens?
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. No, at this time, we haven't affected arrests, and that comes down largely to a case law known as Jordan, where disclosure clock starts. I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, or if it would please you for me to explain it. Okay, so Jordan set a precedent as far as time to trial. And for summary offenses or ones that Crown decides to proceed by summarily, we have to bring the entire issue to trial within 18 months. If we proceed with more serious charges, then we have 3 years to do that. So charges such as murder or whatnot and stuff like that. But what it does is if we were to arrest this person, formally charge them, swear the information, it begins what we call the disclosure clock at that point. And it puts us behind the 8 ball as far as timing goes. So what the process has been since Jordan was adopted is to investigate if necessary, and it meets all 3 of the grounds to arrest. Then we would arrest and release if we need to protect a witness or a public or a specific party or whatnot, prevent the continuation of the offense or whatnot, place that person on conditions, we would arrest. In situations such as property crime, we tend not to, because there's no exigent circumstances, there's no imminent danger to anybody's safety. It is annoying and it is incredibly costly, but people's safety isn't in jeopardy. So we release it. We don't necessarily arrest those people. We have identified them. We know who did it. Once we get our proverbial ducks in a row, we send our report to Crown Counsel. Crown Counsel then says, yep, we've got everything here. We're ready to proceed to trial. We swear the information, get the arrest warrant, and then it begins.
That must be frustrating.
It can be.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. My second question just relates to what was a comment that was made during our public comment time. Our staffing in Summerland, can you just remind us where we're at? How many how many police officers we have on right now, and where we're at with that?
If the detachment was full to complement, it would have 1 sergeant, 1 corporal, and 7 constables. We do have right now, I am in the acting role of the acting sergeant, as he hasn't, the sergeant that was named to come here hasn't been able to sell his house. I do have a corporal that has replaced me temporarily, so we do have both non-commissioned officers in position. And we have right now 5 of 7 constables that are on the road. I've got what we refer to as 2 soft vacancy, one member on maternity leave and 1 member just coming back from a lengthy injury.
And further that, just to clarify, we need to budget for a full complement of officers, even if we're not using them all. But then we don't actually pay for that. This might be for the finance director. We don't actually pay for them all if we're not using them all.
Yes, your mayor. Yes, Mr. Mayor. After 30 days of what we call ODS, off-duty sick or long-term leave due to injury or illness, that member is then placed on a provincial collator, is taken off the budget from the city or the district of Summerland, placed on provincial collator, which then the province then pays for that member's salary.
Thank you. And I also want to, ever since I've been on council, we hear about these traveling criminals going up and down the valley, up and down the valley. Is that a particularly Okanagan thing, or is that everywhere?
We do live in an area that is much more environmentally friendly. What I have noticed, and this is only anecdotal, I can't provide you with numbers or statistics to support it, but when OCC opened in Oliver, that a number of criminals that may have been relocated and served time there, when released, BC Corrections is not forced to relocate that person back to the community from which they offended. So if we get prisoners transferred from the Lower Mainland and they serve their time at OCC, when they're released, they can just walk out the front gate and say, it looks pretty nice here in Oliver or Summerland or Penticton, I think I'm going to stay. And we have seen an increase over the last few years of people from all over the province who have served time there relocating to the Okanagan. As far as the traveling roadshow goes, no, when I worked up north in corridor areas such as Chetwynd, which was a corridor to the Peace region in Alberta and the oil fields, we would get crews that came particularly either from Grand Prairie or from Prince George, and they would do a circuit breaking into rural cabins or businesses and whatnot, take those items, hide them, GPS them out in the woods somewhere, and come back for them 2-3 months later, and whatnot. So that's not unusual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. And I just need a motion to receive the report. Councillor Peak, Councillor Patton, all in favor? That carries. Fire Department. Chief Robinson.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Gonna give you an update for our quarterly for Fire Department and Emergency Support Services team. Our incidents are our first one on the agenda. We have 85 incidents, which are for October, November, and December. Around the average for this quarter is about 85, and in the last few previous years around the same. 32 more calls than last year, so we had a busy year, and that doesn't include the Summerland Fire Department doesn't provide medical response, and that's our quarterly and actually for the whole year, so it's 331. My next slide is to do with training. Our training is consistent with previous quarters and consistent with previous years. Unfortunately, I sound like a broken record, but it's kind of a good thing in a way. We also brought in some facilitators on November the 18th, and 16 of our paid on-call auxiliary members partook in a how to set up command, be able to make decisions at calls, kind of like myself, what I do. They learn how to do strategies and tactics for incidents like motor vehicle incidents and fires and stuff like that. For the whole year, we had 263 training sessions in total. Permits for the year, 62 days available to burn last year, only 43 this year. Just the way the weather venting works for our town. However, we had almost as many people burning with 292 to 307 last year. Hope that makes sense to you guys. So it was we had lots of data entry for people burning for the permits for fires. Our next one is our inspection team. Again, consistent numbers with this quarter compared to other years during this time, much the same. But we were actually overall up 61 inspections compared to last year at this time. I like mine is nice and fast. Quarterly for public education, again, consistent numbers with public education for this quarter, and actually the same number overall last year of 73 for the public education for that. I also wanted to bring the Emergency Support Services team. That's the ESS team that I referred to during this reading, their year-end report. So in 2024 was a much slower year for the ESS team than 2023. However, the team spent 416 hours training, exercising, learning, and responding. Most importantly, a very dedicated subgroup formed a planning committee and were able to complete an extensive ESS plan for Summerland. The team had yet to tally their hours, but would be well over 500 hours. So this gives the team direction of when incidents come in, how to respond to different things throughout the community. The ESS, the Emergency Support Director, had contributed 124 hours to planning, delivering meetings, training, and building connections through the community and region. The team participated in cultural safety and humility training, the lock zone training, and reception center exercise, what they do at the arena. ESS attended the Fire Department Open House and Summerland Fall Fair. The ESS team had 2 well-attended social events for the opportunity to know each other a little more, and they also welcomed 3 new volunteers this year. ESS Summerland assisted evacuees of Summerland during 2 callouts involving 4 evacuees with complex needs. And that's all I have for today.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councilor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Robinson, for your presentation, always coming forward with updates. I just wanted to follow up on the upcoming training going to be hosted on the Penticton Indian Band territory this spring, I believe, bringing together emergency preparedness with different fire departments. We heard about it a couple council meetings ago. I was just wondering if we had any updates on if the Summerland Fire Department was going to be participating in this training. And I'm sorry, I don't have the exact name at the tip of my tongue.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor, I think that's just for First Nations training. I know we are participating in wildfire training. We are training in that. We are sending people to that, but just not the First Nations training. I believe that's just the First Nations training.
Okay. Pardon me. I just thought it was being held on, just hosted basically by the PIB. And I know that they were inviting different fire departments. So it was probably for the wildfire training and how to deal with just different perspectives on dealing with fire.
Yes, I thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor, that Penticton is hosting the Fire Chiefs Convention, the Training Officers Convention, the Fire Prevention Officers Training, Wildfire Training, and the First Nations Training. So we are, other than the First Nations, I believe we are sending everybody to all of those. And we are actually hosting 3 different training events for the training officers here in Summerland. And I'll let you know more in the first quarter updates.
Okay. Councillor Peak, then Patton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm really pleased to hear about the number of hours that we're able to get through with the ESS. I think that kind of training and team effort really provides a much better cohesiveness when they are called out to do it. But I want to compliment our fire department on the number of things and the activities they do every year. I know we get quarterly reports, but I just think that we have a fabulous department, and I think you head it very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll pass that along to all our team as well, too. Thank you.
Councillor Patton.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Rob, I know that I've asked over the last number of years, I've asked you this a few times, and I do apologize for my dementia. Why is it that we don't provide as first responders?
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. It would be up to you guys to decide that. I just go by your direction on what we want to respond to. So we would be able to. It would be a bit of a price to pay for first response. There are different elements to responding. We can do little service, a lot of service, or quite a lot of service. And it would be a bit of a tax on the taxpayers for us to follow in those footsteps. But if you can save one life as a fire department member, I think that's a great thing. But it's up to council and mayor to decide what the fire department wants to respond to. But like I said, if we could save one life, that's what first responders, that's what I'm bred to do. Does that help?
Yeah, yes, thank you very much. I know it was not long ago, I wanna say within the last year, that the ambulance service, BC Ambulance Service came and told us that that Summerland was their new hub, that we would have better service for the citizens of Summerland, based being a hub for the. Have you noticed any difference? I know it's not a very fair question, but have you noticed any difference having the ambulance hub here in Summerland?
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. We don't get called out, so I don't know. I can't be honest and say, yes, it is, or yes, it isn't, because I don't know the stats. So yeah, unfortunately, I can't answer that.
I knew it wasn't a fair question. I apologize for putting you in that place.
That's okay.
Chief Robbins, could you just speak a bit about how the ESS has changed with the the whole kind of shifting for emergency response to become more regionalized and as opposed to local, and my understanding of the ESS is kind of more part is playing more of a regional role now than a local. Could you just speak to that and how it affects our ESS?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know a lot about the ESS teams in our, say, RDOS. I just know that our Summerland team is awesome, and that we have, since I've been in the fire department for let's just say I've been involved with ESS for 15 years. We've built this team up to a great standard, like our fire department. And I think that they do an awesome job when they're here and when they're needed. To say differently about others, I'm sure the other ones are well too. I having a regional one is up to the town to do that, but I think you might lose some key members on just spending 416 hours of free training is pretty fantastic by our team. I can't thank them enough for what they do, and they get called out at 3 a.m. Sunday afternoons when they're busy, and just like us. For the regional one, I'm really not sure. I don't know enough about the whole how it works, but I just know that our team is awesome.
So do you know how often Summerland ESS members are drawn into serve in other parts of the region?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have that number. This year was, thank goodness, with not many wildfires around here and not many flooding incidents. I don't have the answer, but I do know that they do like getting actually called out, because then they get their training it reinforces their training that they're taking all the time. And it doesn't cost us anything, but I just want to say that they do enjoy actually getting called out now and again to other areas of our RDOS. Or last year, there was one of the gals was supposedly deployed to up north, but she ended up not going. But they look at that as a great advantage of honing their skills.
That's good. Okay, don't see any others. So if you get a motion to receive the quarterly update of the fire department, Councillor Peak, Councillor Barkwell, all in favor, that carries. And straight on to ESS, the joint grant project application, Chief Robinson. You're back on.
I'm back on?
Yeah, for the grant application.
Oh, right. I did have that, didn't I? I'll be all right. Okay, so one more. I'm recommending, staff recommendation for a decision that to spend or not spend to jointly an application with the regional district of the South Okanagan-Similkameen, the town of Osoyoos, town of Princeton Oliver, and the village of Karamias for the amount of $280,000. There is no financial impact to the district. Some of the things that the Summerland ESS team is looking for is some small equipment, sending volunteers to the ESS conference, and then lots of training, which they do. I'm seeking the approval to participate in the joint grant application to continue modernizing and volunteer training to and for the District of Summerland for the Emergency Support Services Program. And that's all I really have for that.
Thank you. Councilor Trainer.
I'll bring forward the resolution, the
Okay,
motion.
next second,
as
Councilor
presented.
Peak. Could we just get that on the screen, the resolution? Any discussion or questions? Just wait for it to be on the screen there. Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, that carries. Thank you, Chief Robinson. Now we have another grant application for Clean BC Organics funding, and Director of Works and Infrastructure, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A new grant funding stream has been announced, which coincides somewhat with the projects we have within our proposed financial plan. The Clean BC Organics Fund program is an initiative of the province of BC developed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by increasing diversion of organic waste material that's currently being sent to our landfills. One category of the new program is designated for organics processing infrastructure, including composting facilities, new ones or expansions, which ours would be, resulting in increased processing capacity. The district currently has 2 projects identified in the 2025 financial plan, which are somewhat eligible for this funding under the program requirements. Both the district projects were identified in 2025 to increase the capacity of the current organics facility. First project is creating a water source at the compost facility. Water is critical to the compost process, and currently the district transports water from several kilometers away at a great cost. The addition of water will speed up the composting process, allowing for greater capacity within the system. The second identified project is the compost site bay expansion. The current facility, which was built in 2023 and was designed for future expansion. Given the success of the current kitchen waste collection program and the plan to expand to multifamily collection, the current facility is in need of a bay expansion. We're planning on putting the grant together at a slightly higher cost than the cost that we have in here. Sorry. The district's contribution would be up to the 200,000 that we have within the current 2025 financial plan, with the grant request to the province being approximately $330,000, including contingency for these projects. Sorry, the grant application is due this week. However, we've been working on it for a couple of weeks now to get it finalized and ready for council. We just needed a resolution through council, which the grant funder has prepared for us in order to apply for the grant. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
This is writing our resolutions now. Okay. Good. Any questions? Councilor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Joe, just in terms of looking at the costs for the program. So I know we had already council committed some funds in the budget towards these projects, but then that the grant application is then higher. Can you just kind of break that down a little bit more for me? Are we adding to what we're able to accomplish, or just how do these numbers kind of work? A little bit more.
Thank you, through the mayor. We are adding a little bit to what our original plans were. We are adding some contingency into this as well, as we are seeing costs for everything going up in all the things that we're doing. So we're trying to make sure that we're covered with the grant funding that we request, as opposed to going back later for more. Should we not be successful in the grant, we will work within the budget to do what we can as promised at the financial plan time.
Councilor Patton?
Thank you, Worship. Joe, I want to say it was about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, you brought forward, and we were talking about a new well being drilled up at the landfill. Was that this is falling into those talks that we had in regards to that at that time?
Yes, this would help to fund that project.
Okay, Councillor Peak.
When we look at this, thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we look at this project too, one of the aims was to reduce the amount we would be putting into the landfill to extend the years of being able to operate, because those licenses are very expensive. So to be able to increase this project in terms of the space, so the bay, and then to the water actually provides the impetus for the organics to create faster. We actually get soil more quickly. So the overall aims it really works for. So the opportunity coming now is just a chance. We don't know that we'll get it or not, but if we can, that's all to the good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, no questions. So we want to bring a resolution forward. Councillor Peak as presented. Yeah. Councillor Patton, any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. Carries. Funding request, Summerland Minor Baseball Association. Director of Community Services, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. As a follow-up to the Summerland Minor Baseball Association delegation presentations from the October 15th and January 21st Council meetings, this report is for Council to consider their request to allocate funds towards restoration and upgrades to Field Number 2 Baseball Diamond at Living Memorial Park to match and leverage the recently submitted application to the Blue Jays CARES grant up to $250,000. The Summerland Minor Baseball Association has provided an updated project budget of $750,000, which was included in their grant application submitted on January 31st. This revised budget is provided in the Council report. Please note that this is a high-level budget and opportunities for cost savings are being explored by the Summerland Minor Baseball Association to bring down the budget. While the district's 2023 concept plan for Living Memorial Park focuses on core infrastructure upgrades, this project's goal is to create Field Number 2 as a premier destination ball diamond, accommodating the U15 and U18 age groups. The vision is to construct an inspirational facility that will motivate the younger age groups while retaining the older age groups. The SMBA and the Taylor family are also actively planning and undertaking additional fundraising efforts, as well as applying for other grant opportunities. At the completion of this project, they have indicated that they will be returning to Council to request the renaming of Field 2 to Field 96, which is Hendrick's uniform number. Funding options for Council's consideration are outlined in the Council report and include land sale reserve, Parkland DCC reserve, community building fund, formerly known as gas tax, electrical utility reserve, reallocation from existing projects in the 5-year capital fund, committing to funding support through ongoing operational budgets, and providing in-kind project support. Council could also consider deferring any funding decisions until after the grant announcement is made, which is anticipated in March, or until the 2026 annual budget deliberations. Should the Summerland Minor Baseball Association not be successful with the Blue Jays grant, they will likely be requesting that priority upgrades be implemented in 2025 with the GoFundMe funds raised to date, which is over $70,000, and request that the district funding support be considered and allocated as part of the 2026 budget process. So staff are requesting that Council, number 1, determine if Council would like to financially contribute to this project. 2, to determine the maximum level of financial support at this time. And 3, confirm the funding source. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, who wants to start? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. I appreciate that staff came forward with some options for us to consider. And that was really important when we're talking about such a significant investment. I mean, I definitely can recognize the value added of this opportunity to try and get $3 for everyone that we're potentially investing to improve that the ball diamond. And that's pretty incredible. That doesn't come around every day. And that's really something that I have been weighing. There was one mention of in-kind works that could be done by municipal staff, but I didn't see that in the chart. Could you speak a little bit more to what that would be, or is that more for operational increases, or is there an in-kind opportunity for the actual building expenses?
Through the mayor to Councillor Betts, that's item number 7 in the chart. Which is to provide in-kind project funding through the operational budget. Would you like me to speak to it?
No, I got it. I didn't go down enough when I was rereading it. Pardon me. So, like I think that the in-kind opportunities are worthwhile. I think that's something that the district could offer. I also think that for me, where I'm coming from, is an interest in being able to support the project to the requested 250,000, provided that we can find some places that have been kind of doing some math between a couple different line items here. So what I was interested in is looking to reallocate some funds from the proposed 5-year capital plan. For example, suggested like the natural area strategy and the urban forest strategy that comes to 135,000. And then there's money remaining in the gas tax fund, which is the community building fund. For me, just using the remainder from that, as this is a community amenity. That's my approach. That's just what I was trying to noodle over. I'm interested what other people think.
Lori, could you just remind us what the natural areas management strategy is briefly, and the urban forest strategy and the Memorial Park bandshell enclosure? I think I understand the campground road repaving.
Just starting from the top, the Memorial Park bandshell enclosure, that's been a long-standing item that kind of has been floating in the capital plan as a recommendation that came out of the Parks and Rec master plan originally, but with the Memorial Park master plan being completed, there was some discussion about what would be happening with the bandshell. So that's just been a placeholder within our budget to protect the bandshell from after hours use of it. There's been some vandalism and issues that have happened over the years. So it is to protect the infrastructure, the stage area. So that's that one. The natural areas management strategy also came from the Parks and Rec master plan as a recommendation within the 15-year plan. So it was one of the longer term recommendations to look at our natural areas, which are included in our parks inventory. So district-owned lands that are in a natural state, and look at, what that long-term management of those areas could look like. So whether we wanted to maintain them, change them, is there any works or requirements on those natural areas, which right now we really don't do anything with. So if you consider Hunters Hill development, there could be a potential of a significant amount of natural areas that could be managed by the district in future years, and that would be looking at what we would be doing with those areas. So that's that one. And then the urban forest strategy came out of the Parks and Rec master plan as a long-term recommendation. And that is looking at our trees in our downtown area and our urban areas, and enhancements, potentially additional trees and planting, and just having a strategy around what our urban trees look like and the future around that. Again, that's just very general. But those are coming out of the Parks and Rec Master Plan as recommendations.
I wonder for the natural areas management strategy, if we would be able to apply to the South Okanagan Conservation Fund for that. Are municipalities eligible for funding? Something might be worth looking into. Anyways, I can follow up on that. Council, anyone else? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, this is a very hard one, especially at the amount of money, especially at the times that we're looking at from our meetings last night with the engagement folks, and so I'm kind of on a different lens. I say I would like to look at waiting until the Blue Jays grant has been announced. And then we can come back to the table and we can discuss if how much monies or if any monies are going to be allocated. I think that I don't want to start jumping into our budgets and start taking money from different aspects of our budgets, because I think that at this point it might be a little too soon. So I would rather see us hold off until as per the option number 2 in the staff report.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Peak.
Without repeating all Councillor Patton's words, I happen to agree with this. I find it this is an extremely worthwhile project, and it would certainly create a greater attraction. We want young people to be active, and I think the team aspect of baseball is amazing. But to come at this point in our budget discussion, I would rather wait and see whether this comes as an opportunity, and then we could re-examine where we might be able to get funds from.
Thank you. Councillor Barkwell.
Isn't the part of the application that we have to have a commitment? They have to have a commitment from local government to, if not absolute requirement, to strengthen their application, which is why their application has been held off until we made our decision here. Is that, do I recall that correctly? I think Lori's involved closely and can help.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Barkwell, and the Taylor family is in the gallery if I get this wrong. But my understanding is that matching funds is not required as far as the grant application. However, the request is coming through that the application could be strengthened with a letter indicating that there is support. So it's not required, but it's intended to strengthen the application. And what was required was a letter of support, which we did provide, supporting the project in principle. What would happen after if council made an allocation or a commitment to funding at this meeting, we would provide a follow-up letter that would come as an amendment or an addition to the grant application late.
Yeah, so I would support a commitment of the matching amount, because the opportunity to get $250,000 contribution and the $75,000 they've already raised, which will probably become more. Let's say they can double it, so we're getting $300,000, $400,000 from other sources for $250,000 by us. That's good leverage. And we can then do these capital projects, have to decide what the priorities are. But I want to take advantage of this opportunity. And where exactly we get the money from, well, that's a different question, there's a number of options, so that's not the limiting thing. It's like, are we going to match the funds or not? And then figure out where they're going to come from.
Councillor Peak?
If we were to look at the opportunity, we see that we have 50, I think it's 50,000 in kind. If we said that we would go to 100,000 in a letter of support, a second letter of support, but we could still come back and look at it if they were to get the full amount.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on kind of the same page. I think we can commit to something. I'm not sure the number, but, and we don't have to decide now what that something is. Certainly, if you talk about lighting, it's certainly valid that the cost of lighting is contributed from the electrical reserve, for example. I think that's a reasonable expectation. I think, yeah, I like the idea of setting a number that we will match to, with the possibility of looking at more, because it all depends on how much we're matching if we don't really know. So, Councillor Betts?
Well, so, I mean, it could be that we are willing to match up to $250,000 in the event that they receive that full amount, but that's the limit of our commitment. Which at this time, I think that's what's being asked for, right? So I would be willing to find those from the places that I have already earmarked. That's where I stand. I just think it's an opportunity that doesn't come along very often. So the community building fund from the gas tax, and then also allocating money from the electrical utility to help with the lights, I think would be a good idea.
Do we have to identify where the source is, the funding source?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think for today, if council wanted to say up to some certain amount, and then the letter would be sent saying that ultimately, when it comes down to it, if they're successful on Blue Jays grant, we can come back to council and get the clarity on where specifically. We don't need to identify today the where specifically.
So I kind of like Councillor Peak's idea that we say up to 100,000 of matching, with the possibility of more, depending on amount and funding sources and stuff like that. So, Councillor Trainer.
With the grant, did the Blue Jays award up to 250, or is it okay, so they could actually give us 150 or something less. That's right. Okay. No, it's a great project, and it's really hard to say no to, because like Councillor Betts said, you get a pretty good return, but it's just difficult trying to figure out where to and how to pay for that right now. So that's what I'm just going over in my head.
Councillor Barkle.
Well, I don't want to limit ourselves what we can get. So I would support up to $250,000. And another aspect of this is that, you look at the list of capital projects that they would like, which includes a large amount for lighting, and the district has paid 100% of the cost. Well, maybe not, maybe there was something, but anyway, we've got lighting at the baseball fields and soccer fields and stuff. So why not for these people, these players, these sports enthusiasts, it would maybe even it up a little bit. So this is our opportunity to do that. And that's $343,000 alone. So
Okay, so we need a motion on the table then. If somebody wants to throw something out there. Counselor Betts,
I move that we support matching up to $250,000 for the project.
second, Counselor Barco, further discussion. Counselor Barco?
I'm just not clear what our commitment is if they don't get the grant. Then, then I'm not really keen about spending the money if it's not leveraged up as much. But maybe, we would spend, match the amount raised by the community or something. And then do we have to have that resolved at this point? Or can we just sort of make this commitment and leave that for later?
Presumably it would come back to us, I guess, eh? Let's be optimistic and think that they're going to get something. Okay, any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? Counselor Peak and Patton opposed. Motion carries. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break. Be back at 2:35. Okay, let's get started. 9.7, public notice bylaw. Director of Corporate Services, please.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So provincial legislation, including the community charter, requires local governments to provide advance public notice of certain matters of public interest to facilitate transparency and accountability, as well as to inform the public of opportunities to participate in local government decision-making by sharing their views. Examples of this notice include land disposition notices, notice for public hearings, or notice when a council procedure bylaw, including any amendment bylaw, is going to be adopted. The legislation sets out the minimum requirements for public notice and how notice must be provided, which is that notice is required to be published in a local newspaper once a week for 2 consecutive weeks. In 2022, updates to the public notice requirements came into force, allowing a local government to use their authority to adopt a public notice bylaw in circumstances where publication by a newspaper is no longer practical or where the community has a desire for more varied notice. Amendments to the legislation provide local governments with 2 options of providing notice under Section 94 of the Community Charter. And the first is to continue using the default notice requirement, which is the once weekly for 2 consecutive weeks. And the second is to adopt a bylaw to provide for alternative methods of publication under Section 94.2. The new section provides local governments with the authority to adopt a public notice bylaw if they choose not to use the default notice provision. A bylaw adopted under this section must specify at least 2 methods of notice, either a website, subscription service, newspaper, or social media channels. The notice must be published at least 7 days before the matter which the notice is required unless otherwise specified. Utilizing the new legislation to provide for public notice can streamline the public notification period, as the notice can be published by the means specified in the bylaw without having to work around newspaper timelines or relying on a third party, and can implement cost-saving measures by no longer being required to pay the associated fees with advertising in the local newspaper. It also provides staff more internal flexibility when it comes to submitting the required notices to corporate services. So staff have prepared options for council consideration, which are outlined in the report, of an alternative means of public notice under Section 94.2 of the Community Charter that would be easily implemented into the existing processes and procedures without the need to invest in new technological infrastructure or services and meet the principles of reliability, suitability, and accessibility, which are discussed in the report. These options also consider council's direction during the 2025 general fund deliberations to reduce the advertising budgets of both the Legislative and Development Services Department as a $14,500 cost savings measure. So option 1 would be the use of the district's website and the district's social media. So this option would involve utilizing 2 online methods of delivering statutory notifications to satisfy the legislative requirements under Section 94. The methods would include posting on the district's website, so summerland.ca, and on the district's Facebook page. There's a growing interest in digital engagement and the use of social media for engaging with the public. Facebook is a widely used social media channel that can engage large numbers of people and attract some demographic groups that are typically underrepresented in public engagement efforts. Members of the public can view posts and news items through a free account. In addition, posts can provide for links to the district's website for access to further information and/or opportunities for public participation. So the district's Facebook page currently has approximately 5,100 followers, which is higher than any other distribution list associated with district communications. For example, our council highlights distribution list only has 29 members of the public registered. The newsletter distribution list only has just over 1,900 members of the public registered. The council meeting agenda group has 60 members of the public registered, and Boy and Alert has about 2,400 members registered. So the bylaw, as presented to council, reflects the staff recommendation is drafted with this option in mind. However, there are other options council can consider and provide direction on should they choose. So the second option would be online as well, and that would be use of the website and an email subscription service, so almost a mass mailing notification list that members of the public would have to register. So we would use both of these methods to satisfy the legislative requirements under Section 94 of the Community Charter.
Taking questions?
I was just trying to follow along. Could you, I know it's a lot of material, but could you go a little slower?
Yes.
Thanks.
So option 2. So this option would involve utilizing 2 online methods for delivering statutory notifications to satisfy the legislative requirements of Section 94. So the option 2 would be the district's website, which is the same as presented in option 1, but rather than Facebook, we would utilize a subscription service to email out statutory notifications. So this method would include on the district's website, members of the public could register their email and choose what information they would like access to, and statutory notifications would be one of those options. So should council move forward with this option, we will review the website and same with option 1 and make changes to place statutory notifications in an easily identifiable location for those visiting the website for that purpose. And with the email notification subscription, we would have to obtain an external marketing email service that will assist the district in meeting and anti-spam legislation and ensuring notices are received by residents. So the third option would include the use of the district's website and with the local newspaper, so a hybrid option. The district would continue to issue one of the 2 required notices in the Summerland Review or local newspaper and the other on the district's website. While there would be flexibility in the submission and review of the timeline for the website, staff would still be required to adhere by the newspaper publishing deadlines. And additionally, there would be cost implications of continuing to advertise notice in the local newspaper, which ultimately will require a budget amendment of approximately $7,250. And option 4 is outlined in the report would be to remain status quo. So that would be for publishing public notice and notices in the newspaper. So the once weekly for 2 consecutive weeks to meet our notice requirements. And in this, we still would need to abide by the specific timelines for ad submission and reviews by the paper, which would limit the flexibility and effectiveness of utilizing this method. And similar to option 3, if council chooses to proceed with option 4, a budget amendment of approximately $14,500 would be required. With that, I'm happy to take any questions on any of the options.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Turner.
I think I like option 2. It says website and email subscription service. That would also include social media. That wouldn't? Through the Councillor Turner, no, we would use just the website, and then also through the website, and you can see this in other communities, most notably Peachland's one that comes to mind is, so we'd post our notice on the website, and then we would encourage residents to sign up for like the email, the mass email. So we wouldn't use. How come we couldn't, just curious, how come we couldn't use, so like do a post on Facebook as well? Like would it? Through the mayor, to the deputy mayor, we could. I would be hesitant in adding too many methods that the district choose to do. It just creates, we would just have to do more. It is an option council could choose. We could choose to do all 3. Historically, we haven't posted any statutory notifications on our website. It's just not a practice we follow, but we could easily implement it. Okay, and then one more question. Our website has improved from when I started, but it's still not, we all know, it needs more work. On the homepage, my point is I just really want it to be easy for people. So when they go to the homepage, they're not trying to like search around for things. So is it possible if we were to go with this option to have one of, when you go on, there's like different blocks of stuff, to have a block that's dedicated to these kinds of things? Through the mayor to the deputy mayor. So our point 4 communications assistant is incredibly skilled at utilizing our website. So we would have that option to put it on the homepage so that it's right there and visible. Okay. I also recommend, should council go either with option 1 or 2, that the bylaw would come into force in effect as of April 1st. So even though it's adopted on March 4th, that would give us a month to really encourage the community or let the community know and educate them in any changes that the district makes, and then allows us time to internally make it easy for those wanting to access it, the ability to do so. Whatever option we go with, I don't think the newspaper is a good one anymore, especially because of the cost. But whatever we do go to, I think we just really need to make it clear for people what we're doing and why we're doing it and the cost savings, just, to help everybody understand why.
Councillor Barkle.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to me that Facebook would add any additional cost, but we can't rely on it being the only one because a lot of people are philosophically opposed to Facebook more and more. every day and refuse to go on it. So, having it, the notices on the website of the district and Facebook seems to me a good option. And I don't know what the consultant for the email subscription would cost, but that makes it a little less of a desirable option for me.
Councillor Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I love newspapers. I know they're getting to be passé and they are expensive. So I would go with option 2, the website and an email subscription, but I also would do Facebook because there are people that still do Facebook. And I think that one more thing is not so difficult for our communication person to do. I like Councillor Trainer. The use of the website certainly is better, but if there's a place when those are being posted, as you said, that could be sort of centered, it would be simpler. Sometimes I get in there, I can't find what I want at all. I want to phone somebody. But I would go with option 2 and add Facebook.
Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I was really digging into these. I spent a lot of time at my agenda the last few days. I've been all about this one. So, I actually went with option 2 myself. And I note that the Facebook has 5,100 followers, but I really think it's important that everybody understands that Facebook has its own algorithms that chooses to disseminate your website information based on how many people click on it, which we have no idea what that is. We're not in control of that. And so we might have 5,100 followers, but each person's individual Facebook feed tailors where things show up. And whether or not our notices show up on that person's feed is not up to us. And so I really just would not encourage going that way. Because I think that, yes, our newsletter list is 1,961. Hopefully that's a lot for a lot of people, that's 2 people in the household. But Dave, I have a question for you, Director of Finance. Now that we are actively transitioning our residents from paper billing to the online newsletter, how is that going? It's only been a month. Has there been a noticeable transition at this time? And are we encouraging people still to do so?
So through the mayor to Councillor Betts, we are seeing an uptake. The word is getting out. There's a lot of people, actually, I don't think there's too many people in Summerland that don't know this is a direction of council anymore. So we're having lots of people come in. My staff are, I feel, going above and beyond in sitting down with people and helping those that might be somewhat technologically challenged. Sitting down with them and going through the process with them, but we've definitely seen an uptake, and I would envision that is going to continue over the next couple months.
Can I ask, has that been in the print newsletter? Just if it's not, I think it should continue to be in the print newsletter that we are encouraging people, you now have to pay $1.50 to receive this paper bill. Follow this, go to this address to change to receive your e-edition of the district newsletter. So back to my main point, I'm with option 2, and I don't see a need to mandate the staff to do statutory public notices on Facebook.
So people will still, the neighboring properties will still be receiving their notifications, like if it's a rezoning by mail or whatever. So that doesn't change, correct?
Through the mayor, yeah. So this is only for notices that trigger section 94 of the community charter. When it comes to, and Brad's not here, but he can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe when it comes to public hearing and DVPs under the LGA, there are other notice requirements that we have to meet, which is that neighborhood notification. So that will still continue to be done.
Okay, and if we were to set up an email subscription service, that would have to be done from scratch. We can't use the mailing list for the newsletter would have to be a completely separate thing that people would have to specifically request, correct?
Correct. So to the mayor, correct, yeah. People would have to put, the onus would be on the person or the individual, the resident, to register to receive. We can't use any emails we've previously collected for a different purpose. For that purpose, they would have to consent to that.
And there'd be a bit of cost to doing that.
Through the mayor, so we did look into what it would cost to do a mass mailing subscription, and essentially it's about $50 to $100 a month. So it is significantly less than the newspaper and can fit within our operating budget.
See, so I guess my view on this is any kind of push notifications probably isn't going to go down too well, because the vast majority of notifications, most people don't, it doesn't affect them personally, and they won't really care, right? So you risk, if you're constantly getting these emails of things that are irrelevant to you, that it becomes you view it as spam, and you won't even pay any attention to it. And certainly I wouldn't want to use Voint Alert for this, because that's really important for emergencies. And if you start getting all these other things that aren't really emergency, I mean, we saw this weekend with the broken water main, that's the role of Voint Alert and how effective it is. That, you really want to pay attention to that. So you don't want to start diluting that. I just think, the reality is Facebook has replaced newspapers. So option one is basically what we're doing already in the 21st century. It's the 20th century. It's the 21st century of the 20th century practice. That's kind of the reality I see. So, Councillor Traynor.
I think with Facebook, even though it doesn't always show up in your feed, a lot of people follow Facebook pages and go to them regularly just to see what's been updated. And if you're interested in what the district's doing, you would check that. You can, just like a Castanet or Penticton Herald, you check their website regularly. So I do think it is worthwhile to do Facebook. Also, people can share. So if they saw a notification that they thought would be important for their friends or something, or neighbors to know about, they could share that on their page. So I think I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook, but I do think that there is value in doing posts on there. I think if we have the website that checks that box, that's like a no-brainer to me. And then in terms of the email, I hear what the mayor is saying. If you get too many, you start to, ignore them. But this would be an opt-in, right? It would be an opt-in. So the people who are opting in have an interest in learning about this stuff. So they can always change their minds. And what happens if we tried it for a year? And if we didn't get people signing up for it, then we just, change our policy and just say, you know what, the stats show people don't want the emails. And then we just continue with the website and social media. So I think because we are doing quite a drastic change by getting rid of the traditional media. I think offering people 3 sources, website, email, social media, gives them the opportunity to choose. And then ones that aren't working after a year, we can make a change. So I would say option 2 with social media.
Thanks for the discussion. I mean, I think one of the things that I just didn't fully understand is that we would be starting from scratch for another list, and that just looking at the uptake for example, council highlights, which actually show the things that we talk about in a very easy to understand manner, and that has a small number of recipients, and that actually is a very useful document, as compared to getting very technical legislative notices. I'm not sure of the generous uptake to the email list that we would receive. So in light of the discussion, I mean, I'm not even sure if it's worth investing $50 a month to get 12 people to sign up for a new email list. Unfortunately, but so, I mean, I really appreciate the discussion. It's opened my eyes to more complexity.
The other thing I think maybe we could consider is having a place in town where we post the notifications, paper copies on a board somewhere, corporate office.
Thank you to the mayor. We do have that. We legally have to actually have that. And that is the cork board in the lobby at Municipal Hall. So arguably there may be a more frequented location in the community, but in addition to whatever council chooses and even our default, our notices do have to be placed on the cork board down in the front lobby.
Is there I guess a place that's more public perhaps? I don't know, does the post office have one inside? I know they have one on the outside, but the inside, I don't know. Something to think about. Anyone else? Councillor Betts?
Just what about the library? I don't know if they are mandated to really only just put community notices on their notice boards, but
In the pub, maybe. Councillor Trainer.
If we were to do notices on Facebook, we could just do, like, we could say a new notification has come out. If you're interested, check it out, and then put a link. Like, a link to our website, would that count, or does it actually have to be an image with all of the detailed writing? So through the mayor to the deputy mayor. So most of the time when the community charter is prescribing something with notice, it's including what has to be included in that notice. So if it's one of our methods of posting the notice, it would have to encompass what is required to be in there. So if you think of, and maybe you don't look at them, but if you think of what the public hearing or rezoning, it would basically be taking that ad that we create. So internally, there wouldn't be a huge difference in what staff creates, and it'd be taking that image, and then basically posting it. Okay. With some text, and I'm just not quite sure what that would look like yet, but it would. There's requirements of what has to be included, and that would have to be included in one of our formal posting places. Okay.
Councillor Beak?
Again, because we've discussed it enough, I'm wondering that maybe we shouldn't have an email subscription thing, because once you start that, and if you decide, well, you only got 25 people that sign up, is it worthwhile doing it, and then you withdraw it, and then you've created some discontent? Maybe you're better to do it without.
Councillor Barcole, and that's.
Yeah, I was just, after listening to the conversation, I realized that the email option is not a very good one at all. And then Councillor Peak has just added one more good reason why the email option isn't a good one. So I'm all for just the Facebook and the district website.
That's.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to move option 1.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Chen.
So I'm going to vote against this. And the reason why I'm voting against it is because I just want to offer options for the first while we transition to a new communications system for this. So I fully support website and social media. I just personally think that we should add one more. And so that's why I won't be supporting this as we presented it.
This doesn't limit us. We can still, if there's a big, a controversial, say, rezoning, for example, not that we have any of those, can we can still put it in the newspaper and everything like that, correct?
Through the mayor. So council at any time, like, we can go above and beyond. This is just what we legally bare minimum have to do. And to Councillor Trainer's point, we are going to have to look at the more the district starts to go digitally. So the newsletter is a really good example, as we probably will need to incorporate some type of mass mailing, just the way the system works, that's going to help us meet these anti-spam legislation. So when that rolls out, there always is an opportunity for council to do more and even revisit the methods that we are doing. So I could potentially see it being something that the organization does in the future as an option. We're just not there. This bylaw really just sets the bare minimum requirements that the district has to meet when we need to satisfy whatever section 94 or whatever that requirement is.
Councillor Barco?
You know, some people say, well, I don't go to the website, or I don't look at Facebook, or, you know, it's might go to spam and stuff, but all those same things still apply to the newspaper. Fewer and fewer and fewer people get the newspaper, fewer and fewer people even read it, or if they read the paper, they'll skip right over anything that says District of Summerland notice. So there's you know, there's ups and downs or goods and bad about every method. So pick your poison.
Yeah, and I think we should also make clear that it is posted in the municipal hall lobby, and certainly if we can find another place in town where we could post it, that would be helpful. Councillor Betts?
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a small add-on, having worked in this world, specifically in growing a small business, is that it's really common to offer a giveaway in trying to build your email list. And maybe that could be some recreation passes, or, you know, and that would involve everybody who's already on our utility mailing list, plus any new signups by a certain day. You can give away a 10-punch pass or a skating pass, just a little bit of District of Summerland swag, a cup, you know, it just encourages people to make that jump. And that is what loads of small businesses do all the time.
Okay, Councillor Barco?
So there's a motion for option one on, did anybody second it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'll call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? Councillor Trainer is opposed. The motion carries. Bylaws for adoption, the intercommunity mobile business license amendment bylaw. Anybody want to bring that forward? Councillor Betts, Councillor Peak, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. And items removed from the consent agenda, Four Seasons Cultural Society, Councillor Betts. I think you brought that forward, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wasn't sure, this is about the sponsorship opportunity for the powwow between the two lakes. And I didn't know if there was another time that we might be discussing this, or if District of Summerland was going to be a primary sponsor, as it was in 2023, which I believe was the last time powwow was held. And it was just such a great event, and nice to be supportive of our neighbors growing this event. Of course, that was a one-time commitment, and they did have success with that event. I just wanted to bring it forward to my fellow councillors to discuss if we should be a sponsor again, maybe even to a smaller amount, or if that's coming up at another time.
No, this is the time, I would say. Councillor Peak.
Well, I thought it was a great event. I feel that having done a 20,000 gold sponsor last year, that I would not recommend going with another sponsorship this year. Perhaps I would look at it the following year.
If we were to do one of the sponsorships, is not sure who over there I should direct this to, but where might we be able to find the money?
I guess it's a finance question. I'll try to answer that. So at this point in time, the financial plan bylaw that's going in front of council this evening does not take any sponsorships into account. We council could look at a couple different options. We could try to reduce some funding in some other areas. We could possibly look at increasing our grant and aid budget and possibly doing it through that, but all of those have tax implications. We have We've got $20,000 earmarked in economic development. However, that's fully allocated out to the light up festivities. Not sure that would go over very well. So we might be able to pull some money out of surplus, depending on what dollar value council was looking at. So we got a couple options, which we could try and find some funds.
So we do have some time. I don't think we have to make this decision here now. Would it be reasonable to ask staff to look at where some of this funding could come from? Yeah.
I think, Your Worship, if council wanted, we could put something together in terms of options, not dissimilar to what we did for minor baseball, and bring it back to council in a future council meeting for further conversation and direction.
Would that work, Councillor Betts? Did you want to bring that? Oh, okay, hang on. So Councillor Trainer then Peak.
Do we know, is the city of Penticton or the RDOS giving any money?
The city of Penticton is all in, like as they were before. With
Oh, they are,
the
okay.
SOC and donating that and everything. Hasn't come to RDOS at all.
Okay, I would definitely be interested in giving something to them. I think that it was a fantastic event 2 years ago. And I think it shows, to me, it's part of reconciliation, and they did an awesome job before, and it had a huge turnout. And yeah, so I think it represents us well to be there and showing our support. And so I don't know what that number is, and I don't know where it's coming from, but I would like to support them some way if we can.
Councillor Peak.
Well, their sponsorships are the amounts on the back. So if we're asking staff to look for funds, then I would suggest that they look for the bronze fund, which is $5,000.
Yeah.
I'm one voice here.
Whatever. I mean, they might only find 2,000 and then it doesn't matter. Right? But, you know, I hear what you're saying. I would think personally, I think if we can find 8,000, we should go in for a silver. I think that's, I think we can justify not going for the gold for a number of reasons. One is that it's come to us, you know, after our budget has already been set. And also, as we heard from the presentation, that they do have corporate sponsors this year, which they didn't previously. So I think that's, you know, if you kind of think of government's role is to kind of incubate these sort of things and kickstart them. We did that last time. But I think, you know, I think if we could do a silver sponsorship, that'd be great, but minimum bronze for sure. But I would like to see staff come back with options. Yeah, so we need a motion. So, Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. So do we want to, in our direction to staff to look for money, look for $8,000 so that they're not looking for more than that?
Sure. Okay. Easy. Is that a motion then?
Oh, yes, that's a motion.
Okay, a second. So did you get that, corporate officer? Yeah, okay. We all know what we're voting on then? Okay. Okay. Okay, all right. So it's on the screen there. I'll call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? None opposed? That carries. Moving on to the Eager Lake letter, Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I know through our grant and aid program, and I realized that there was $4,500 actually through the RUS that was given to Eager Lake. It was in their presentation today. So when we were at the Legion for the King Awards. King Charles Award, thank you. It was, I was asked by one of the members of Eager Lake in regards to our grant and aid, and I told him that what had happened and that exactly for the reasons that we spoke about today with if it's gone through the regional district but I did say that I would ask that I know that we put aside $1,000, $1,200. My ask is if at the end of the season, if nobody has come forward in regards to the hockey teams or anybody for those funds, that if we do have any funds left over, if we could contribute to the Eager Lake, it's for their cart that they use for their wildfire mitigation up in the hills and cleaning, and they're having a bit of a tough year this year. And so I said I would bring it forward. And so I was thinking that if the funds weren't used, that maybe we could offer them to this charitable cause.
Okay. Councillor Peak?
I'd be more than willing to see that happen if it was the case.
Councillor Trainer?
Is there a date, like when there's a cutoff, or like would we set a date, like in terms of grant and aid?
Through the mayor to deputy mayor, we have a application deadline for everyone that they're supposed to meet. However, we always get late applications. We've already received 2. So we have 2 other ones that council hasn't seen yet. In the amount of about $750. So at some point here, probably in the near future, you'll get a report from me with those ones. But there's no specific deadline per se outside of the very first one.
So if the money's gone, the money is gone. We can, at least we tried.
May I speak? They wanted feedback on why they didn't get it. So I think a response to them would be good.
Okay. Look like there will be, so. Okay, so we'll just, we need a motion to receive this letter and the previous one as well. So Councillor Peak and Betts, all in favor? That carries. So now I need a resolution to close the meeting pursuant to sections 91C, E, and G of the Community Charter. Councillor Trainer, Councillor Peak, all in favor? That carries.